If you clicked on this video, it means that you are struggling writing your statement of purpose, and this is perfectly normal. Most people have a lot of difficulties introducing themselves as well as communicating their career goals. It's because of this I started this series on a statement of purpose. This series is to break down the statement of purpose into smaller pieces to help you write. I'm going to start with the introduction, and I'm going to share with you proven strategies to help you put together a strong introduction, which will serve as a basis for the other parts of your document. If this video is helpful, let me know in the comment section. Hello, and I'm grateful for you watching today. You keep on motivating me and pushing me to keep on making these kind of content. So without wasting much time, let's look at how to write a strong introduction for your statement of purpose for graduate school. And always remember, I am rooting for you. See ya! Hello, so let's start the presentation on writing an effective statement of purpose. And as I previously said, this will focus on the introduction. We are going to build up from there. So for today's agenda, we are going to look at what a statement of purpose is and why it's important to write a strong introduction. I will continue with the ingredients of an introduction and some approaches to develop a strong hook. We'll end the presentation of the video by developing a strong introduction together. We'll identify the pitfalls you might encounter when writing your own introduction. So stay with me till the end, and it will be worth your time. And before we start, if you haven't yet liked, kindly do so and share with anybody you think will find this video useful. And thank you. So what is a statement of purpose? So this is a document used by the admissions committee, and the document provides them with the information about your academic and professional background, your research interests, as well as your career goals. This document also helps them to identify if you're a strong candidate or a good fit for their program. So at the end of the day, the final document you submit should have all this information there. Your academic and professional background, your research interests, your career goals, and why you think you're a good fit for the program. So if you don't have these in your document, this is a good time to go back to the drawing board to work on that. But we are going to focus on just the introduction for this video. So this document is also known as a personal statement, your application essay, or a letter of intent. So whenever you see any of these words, it refers to the same. So what's the importance of a strong introduction? The introduction of your statement of your purpose is actually an opportunity to grab the reader's attention and to make a good first impression. You know, people judge a book by its cover, so this is also very important. A strong introduction will make your statement of purpose more engaging and memorable. So because of this, they'll like to continue reading, and this will set the stage for the rest of your essay. Unfortunately, if your SOP introduction is very weak, it makes your statement of purpose very dull, and at the end of the document, like, nobody even remembers what you've written. And when this happens, your chances of getting admitted is almost like zero. So what is the ingredients of an introduction? Like, this is actually the basis of today's presentation. So take your pens and papers and start taking notes and following up with me as we develop this technical strategy together. The first thing is to start with a hook. So what is a hook? A hook is basically a catchy, interesting, or surprising opening that grabs the attention of whoever is reading your documents to want to continue. Once you've nailed your hook, the next thing is to provide context and background information to help the reader to understand your experiences and your goals and like why you want to do this. To end your introduction, you need a thesis. So your thesis is the main point or argument of your statement of purpose. It should have three things. It should be clear, it should be concise, and it should focus on your unique experiences and goals. So in summary, the introduction entails your hook, your background information, and your thesis. And once you're able to nail all these three things, you would have a solid introduction. How do you develop this? Actually, that's the purpose of today's video. That's what we are going to learn. So the approach is to develop a hook. There are so many ways you can create your hook, but I'm going to show you some approaches or some common ways you can develop your own hook. The first thing is to start with the quote. The quote should be relevant to your experiences and your goals, and it's to serve as an opening line for your introduction. Examples of some quotes you could use is the only way to solve the power crisis in Ghana is to embrace renewable energy and end our dependence on hydroelectric power. So the introduction we are going to develop, it will be based on the power crisis in Ghana. So for each of the hook we are going to develop, I'm going to give you an example of how that is related to the power crisis in Ghana. So that is why we have this. I'm also going to show you some random hooks you could use. So that's why it's the first one. So the second one you could also use is to be a great engineer, you have to be a great problem solver, but you also have to be a great communicator. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. So for these courses, you could just go online and you could look at what is related to your experience or your values, and you could get a quote to start your statement, of course. Another approach you could use is to begin with the surprising statistics or facts. Just like the quote, it should grab the reader's attention, and it should be based on your relevant experiences and your goals. So something that is a surprising statistics based on my experience will be different from another person. So kindly don't copy. Try and look for something that is related to your field or what you want to study. So let's look at examples. Did you know that 80% of Ghanaian companies failed during the Doomsor power crisis? This shocking statistics is a clear indication of the devastating impact that unreliable electricity can have on the country's economy and quality of life. So I could just start the surprise statistics of facts is just the first part, but I just wanted to build it up a bit to give you a bit of context. Another thing you could say was, did you know that only 10% of Fortune 500 companies are led by women? So when you see that, okay, so what is this person is up to something, you are more interested, you are more curious to continue. The last thing I could do, as our world becomes increasingly connected and reliant on technology, the need for cybersecurity experts has never been greater. Just all these things, it makes the reader more interested to find out exactly what you are bringing on board or what you want to say. The third approach is to tell a personal anecdote. A personal anecdote is basically a story that is based on your lived experience, something you have experienced. So let's look at this. As a young girl growing up in Ghana, I remember the frustration and fear that came with the Doomsor crisis. My parents' small business, which relied on electricity to operate, struggled to survive during that time. We also face daily challenges at home, such as being unable to keep our food fresh or having to use harmful kerosene lamps for light. So this is my personal experience based on the power crisis. This is my lived experience. That's what the personal anecdote is. You start based on your lived experience. Another example is, when I was a child, my parents took me on a trip to a museum where I saw a dinosaur fossil for the first time. I was completely captivated by the power and majesty of this ancient creature, and from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to study paleontology. So this was another one based on your lived experience. And because it's your lived experience, there are so many stories you could tap into. So just sit down and think about the program you want to study and how it relates to your lived experience, and that could serve as the hook to your statement of purpose. Approach 4. Start with a provocative or controversial idea or question. So this is, you can pose a question that relates to your experiences and goals, and that can entice the reader to continue reading into finances. The government's reliance on hydroelectric power has failed Ghana, and it's time to consider more radical solutions to the energy crisis. Instead of continuing to pour money into a faulty dam, we should explore the use of renewable energy as a viable alternative. So this is controversial ideas, okay, why so you get what I mean. Another one is, this is one thing I really like because as Christians we face a lot of these issues. So As a student of theology, I've been fascinated by the concept of God's existence in a world full of suffering and injustice. So that reader will be like, okay, this person is onto something. What does this person want to? Let me read more to find out. Approach 5 is to begin with a surprising contrast. So let's look at this example. While most countries are moving towards renewable energy, Ghana is still heavily reliant on hydroelectric power. So I'm comparing renewable energy to hydroelectric power. This outdated and unreliable source of electricity has caused major distractions and setbacks for our country, including the failure of 80% of Ghanaian companies and widespread contraction of malaria. It's time for a change. Another thing you could also use as a contrast is growing up in a small town in rural America. I never expected to become a professional ballet dancer. But here I am dancing on the world's biggest stages and loving every minute of it. So the contrast is like for somebody who grew up in a small town in rural America, it was like almost impossible for you to be a professional ballet dancer and dancing on huge stages. So like that is the contrast she's trying to create. Approach number 6 starts with a vivid image or metaphor. So with this, like you want the person to experience it, so like the person can create a mental picture of actually what's happening. So back again to the Doomsor crisis. I hope you are looking at how everything is developing. And once we are done, we are going to build up on the strong introduction using all these informations we've learned. So the Doomsor power crisis in Ghana was like a dark cloud hanging over our country, causing widespread failure and misery. Companies went bankrupt. Hospitals were unable to function at full capacity, and a large amount of agricultural produce went to waste. It was like being in the middle of a storm with no end in sight. So, like, if you are reading this, you could picture exactly what happened in Ghana during this period of time, and that is what the vivid image or metaphor is supposed to do. Two other examples is I see my future as a bridge. So you can imagine a bridge connecting the science of psychology with the art of therapy and helping people to heal and grow. So it's like you are serving as a bridge to connect two worlds together. From the tallest skyscrapers to the longest bridges, civil engineering is a field that has the power to shape and improve our world. So this is going to be the last approach, and we are going to look at examples and basically how to develop your introduction together. Is to begin with a bold statement. So you have to make a statement that captures the essence of your experiences and goals and that challenges the reader to think differently. The government's reliance on hydroelectric power has failed Ghana and it's time to change. Simple like that. I believe that the traditional way of teaching mathematics is broken and it's time for a radical change. It's bold, like whoever is reading this statement will be like, okay, what is this person have, like what's going on? They want to continue further, and that's the purpose of the hook. The hook is to make the reader want to continue further. So now let's look at how to develop an introduction, how to build on it. So this is the first example. One thing you can see is that this is actually a long introduction, but right now we are not focusing on the details of it. We're not focusing on the length of the document or even on the grammar. We just want to put our thoughts on paper, and once we are done building the whole statement of purpose, that's when we'll come back to trim and take some things out and look at what's important, add and subtract. So right now we are just trying to put everything in our thoughts on paper. So have this in mind. Forget about the grammar, the number. No, that shouldn't be your focus at this stage of the process. So write an introduction for a statement of purpose for graduate program in civil engineering. Identify the hook, background information, and your thesis. So the power crisis in Ghana, commonly referred to as Doomsor, has had a devastating impact on Ghana. We began experiencing erratic power supply as a country in early 2001. The main reason was a significant drop in the water levels at the Akosombo Dam, Ghana's main hydroelectric dam, which supplies electricity to Ghana and to its neighboring West African countries. This was temporarily resolved in 2008. Approximately 80% of Ghanaian companies failed. Hospitals were unable to function at full capacity. A large amount of agricultural produce went waste. The majority of citizens contracted malaria, and living in Ghana became unbearable beginning in 2012 due to Doomsor. Doomsor was coined due to the major power crisis that plagued Ghana at the beginning of 2012, which still had not been fully resolved. Doomsor is a word in our local parlance that means lights off. The electricity crisis deteriorated, hence load shedding had to be practiced, where communities had light, SOC for 12 hours, and no light, Doom for 24 hours. Unfortunately, this plan was not effective and efficient, since some communities experienced Doom continuously for 3 days, and some communities even more days. The Doomsor issue was due to the damage of the West African gas pipeline by ship's anchor that was avoiding a pirate attack. Hence, the power plants, which depend on gas to run their turbines, are not in operation. Ghana is exploring the use of renewable energy to solve the energy crisis issue. Considering the current canker and the new focus of the government of my country, I applied for a master's in renewable energy and civil engineering. Experts in this area are relatively low in Ghana, hence it's very important for me to acquire the necessary knowledge and skills in renewable energy and return home to contribute my quota to solve the issue at hand. So this was actually an SOP I presented for a master's in renewable energy at the University of Harvard in France. I got into the program. Unfortunately, I didn't attend because I attended another program. But it was a very interesting SOP, and I really love this SOP because this is a specific situation that's actually happening in Ghana. So it's not anything new. So that's why I'm always like, we have so many stories around you. You could tap into one of these to write your SOP. So now let's look into details about this SOP, what's good and what's. So the first question I'm going to ask you, is this a strong introduction? Let me know in the comment section what you think. And as you can see from the previous introduction I read, it's been color coded based on the hook, the background information, and the thesis. So now let's look at each of them step by step. So what's the hook? The hook of this introduction is actually the mention of Ghana's power crisis and the use of the local term Doomsor to describe it. Let me also know in the comment section what type of hook this is. The truth is, I didn't mention this type of hook, but this type of hook is a reference to actually a specific event and a catchy phrase that draws the reader's attention, because now the reader will be wondering, okay, what's this doom? So like I'm more interested in it. And also the hook is also quite emotional because it evokes a certain feeling in you, because you could relate to the feelings of frustration and inconvenience that many people in Ghana actually experience with the power crisis during that period of time. The background information includes the causes of the power crisis, such as the damage to the West African gas pipeline and the effects of the crisis on the people, including the failure of many businesses, people getting malaria. And the thesis was straight to the point, is the candidate or my desire to pursue a master's degree in renewable energy, so that this was to serve as a way for me to gain the knowledge and skills needed to help solve the energy crisis in Ghana. So you could see the hook, you could see the background information, and you could see the thesis. The next question I want you to identify for me is that what are the weaknesses? So before you continue, I advise you pause and try and let me know in the comments and some of the weaknesses you identified. I'm also going to share with you some of the weaknesses I identified, and together we are going to see how best to improve it. So what are some of the weaknesses? One potential weakness of this introduction is that it focuses solely on the power crisis in Ghana and my desire to address it. While this is a very important and relevant topic, it does not provide enough information about my goals, interests, and qualifications to make a strong case for why I deserve to be accepted into the program. Even though I was accepted, but it, it was possible. But my point is like it doesn't create a strong that why I need to be accepted because they don't know my skill set. Earlier in the documents, I did mention it, but the truth of the matter is like all the major information should be in your introduction. Like it should be a summary of everything. So it's like in the rest of the documents, you are just building it up. So it's like you need like a summary. The introduction should have a summary of who you are. Like once they read the introduction, they should have like a fair idea of what they are looking for. So in the second thing that I said was like the no information on the specific skills and knowledge I hope to actually gain and how I plan to use those skills to contribute to solving the energy crisis in Ghana. I did say that I wanted to gain a skill set to be able to improve it, but it wasn't specific enough. Like, and what do I want to use that knowledge for? So to how can we solve this issue? We need to provide more specific and detailed information to create a more compelling and persuasive statement of purpose. So let's look at this. I revised it a bit. So for my first problem, I'm going to solve that problem. I'm going to add this to my statement of purpose. I've always been interested in renewable energy as a student of civil engineering because of its potential to help our nation's power crisis. I gained hands-on experience in this field through internships at a renewable energy company, where I learned about the technical challenges and opportunities it presents. My previous coursework includes classes in energy systems, renewable energy technologies, and engineering economics. And I've also completed a research project on the feasibility of using solar power to electrify rural communities in Ghana. So this is not really my experience, but like I just looked at the program website. I looked at some of the relevant courses, and I put it there. And I also looked at projects that I felt are more linked to the program, and I put it there. It's okay if you don't have all these things, but like if the program is like in civil engineering, look at the relevant courses and you look at what you feel the background you have that will make it more relevant to the program. Let's look at solution two for the second problem you identified. So I'm applying for a master's degree in renewable energy and civil engineering because I believe it will give me the knowledge and skills I need to contribute to solving the energy crisis in Ghana, which I previously said. As an expert in renewable energy, I hope to develop innovation solutions and help transition our country to a more sustainable and reliable energy systems. Experts in this field are relatively rare in Ghana, and I believe that by acquiring the necessary knowledge and skills, I can make a significant contribution to addressing the power crisis and improving the quality of life in my country. Specifically, I plan to use the knowledge and skills I gained from this program to design and implement renewable energy projects in rural areas. So for this, I thought about the skills I want to do and why I want to learn it. I want to be able to develop innovative solutions, and I also want to implement renewable energy projects in rural areas. Yes, you could go more specific, you could go more in details about it, but this is just to give you the broad idea on like what you could do or play around with. Now let's look at the revised introduction. I'm still using the color code, the hook background information, the thesis, and the new information. So now let's read this. The power crisis in Ghana, commonly referred to as Doomsor, has had a devastating impact on Ghana. We began experiencing erratic power supply as a country in early 2001. The main reason was a significant drop in the water levels of the Akosombo Dam, Ghana's main hydroelectric dam, which supplies electricity to Ghana and to its neighboring West African countries. This was temporarily resolved in 2008. Approximately 80% of Ghanaian companies failed. Hospitals were unable to function at full capacity. A large amount of agricultural produce went waste. The majority of citizens contracted malaria, and living in Ghana became unbearable beginning in 2012 due to Doomsor. Doomsor was coined due to the major power crisis that plunged Ghana at the beginning of 2012, which still has not been fully resolved. Doomsor is a word in our local parlance that means light off. The electricity crisis deteriorated, hence load shedding had to be practiced, where communities had light so for 12 hours and no light do for 24 hours. Unfortunately, this plan was not effective and efficient because communities experienced doom continuously for 3 days and some communities even more days. The doomsday was due to the damage of the West African gas pipelines by a ship anchor that was avoiding a pirate attack. Hence, the power plants which depend on gas to run their turbines are not in operation. Ghana is exploring the use of renewable energy to solve the energy crisis issue. I've always been interested in renewable energy as a civil engineering student because of the potential to help our nation's power crisis. I gained hands-on experience in this field through internships at a renewable energy company, where I learned about the technical challenges and opportunities it presents. My previous coursework includes classes in energy systems, renewable energy technologies, and engineering economics. And I have also completed a research project on feasibility of using solar power to electrify rural communities in Ghana. Considering the current canker and the new focus of the government of my country, I applied for a master's in renewable energy and civil engineering. Experts in this area are relatively rare in Ghana, and I believe that by acquiring the necessary knowledge and skills, I can make significant contributions to addressing the power crisis and improving the quality of life in my country. Specifically, I plan to use the knowledge and skills I gained from the program to design and implement renewable energy projects in rural areas. So this is like the improved version, which includes all the information. So as I said, now no focus on grammar or punctuations. We are just trying to put all our thoughts on paper. So like at the admissions committee, they know like they could get from it. Like personally, this is some of the things I could draw from their statement of purpose. So Barbara is interested in the Masters in Renewable Energy because one, Ghana is looking for experts in renewable energy to solve the energy crisis issue. And she has interest in working in that field, hence needs to upgrade her knowledge base. So there's a specific existing problem she wants to solve. And at this moment, this knowledge or skills is very important to her. So this is the summary of that. The second thing is she wants to design and implement renewable energy in rural areas. So that's her goal. Like there's a problem at hand that needs to be solved, and she wants the skills to implement renewable energy in rural areas. So now let's look at her background information. So Barbara has a background in civil engineering, which is part of the admissions requirement for the program. She has taken relevant courses in renewable energy, which is also good. And she's worked as an intern in a renewable energy company and completed a research project in renewable energy. So her background and her interest shows that she could be a good fit or a great candidate for this program. So even though we've not really finished writing the entire document, just the introduction has sold Barbara, like has given all the information you need to know about this candidate. So now it's like, okay, I'm interested, let me get to know her more. So I've actually decided to add two extra essays or two other introduction you could look at. We are going to look at this, but for the other one, I'm not going to look at it with you. I'm going to leave this presentation or like this link, this presentation in the description box, so you could also access and look at it yourself. So now let's look at this one. From the tallest skyscrapers to the longest bridges, civil engineering is a field that has the power to shape and improve our world. I'm passionate about using my knowledge and skills in civil engineering to create solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges, and I'm excited to apply to this graduate program in civil engineering. With my background in engineering and my experiences as a project manager, I believe that I have the skills and knowledge to succeed in this program. I'm excited to learn from experienced faculty, to collaborate with diverse peers, and to participate in cutting-edge research projects that will challenge and inspire me. I'm eager to explore research questions in the field of civil engineering, such as how to design more sustainable and resilient infrastructure, and how to use technology to improve construction processes and outcome. So what are the problems or what are some of the weaknesses of this SOP I just read? I'm going to look at two things. The first thing is that it does not provide much background information about the applicant's qualifications and experiences. Even though they talk about that they have experiences in engineering and project management, it's not specific enough, so we don't really know if this candidate has the necessary knowledge or skills to actually study the program they want to apply to. The second thing is it also does not include a clear thesis, and that sets the stage for the other documents. It makes it difficult for the reader to understand the applicant's motivation and direction, and it could make application less cohesive and focused. So the overall thing to work on is to add more specific and relevant details about the applicant's qualifications and experiences, and to include a clear thesis that will set the stage for other documents. As I said, like I didn't like this is something you have to work on. So this is also another one. It's about an earthquake. This is based on a personal anecdote. I've, I've broken down like what's the hook, what's the background information, and what's the thesis. So if you've watched so here, that's good, and thank you very much. So for your homework and how to develop your own statement of purpose, if you've already written your statement of purpose, for your introduction, try and identify the hook, the background information, and the thesis. If you don't have these there, rework it and have an introduction, your background information, and the thesis. What type of hook are you looking at? Try and also identify some of the weaknesses, just like we've done in the other slides, and also provide answers and solutions. Then you update your statement of purpose. As I said at this stage, don't worry about the length. And once we complete the SOP, we will trim it down to get the best length we need. And always remember, the introduction of your statement of purpose should grab the reader's attention and make them want to read on. By using one of the approaches I've shown you, you can effectively introduce yourselves and your goals and set the stage for the rest of your statement. And always remember, there's no perfect statement of purpose. It should just highlight you and who you are as a person and artist. Got questions, and let me know in the comment section, and do like, share, comment, and share with everybody who find it useful. And till we meet again, bye.